This episode was made possible by a joint effort by the California Institute for Behavioral Health Solutions and Advocates for Human Potential, Incorporated, and funded by the California Department of Healthcare Services, Community Services Division. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Dose. With me today, I have Julian Olmos, substance abuse counselor here at Phoenix Health. We're going to be talking about how are opiates reaching the youth today. And there are many factors in which involve how this powerful pain medication, the legal and illicit versions, are reaching the youth. So let's start off with Julian. Go ahead.
So all over the internet, anywhere that you want to look, if you look up like fentanyl or how is fentanyl getting to our loved ones, how is fentanyl getting to our youth, how are people getting fentanyl, anything that you type into like YouTube or Instagram or Google or whatever, you'll see that they're getting here through the mail. There's a lot of illicit sellers online. Some of these places just like get them from China, or they get them from wherever it's legal or slightly less illegal. And then when they get here to the States, then they're just pressed into other pills and they're sold off as like knockoff Xanax, or they're sold off as knockoff, like any number of other opioids or benzodiazepines. And the problem with that is if you get whatever opiate through a prescription, you follow the prescription exactly as it's given to you. As soon as you don't feel pain, as soon as you're able to tolerate going a day without the opioid, you stop taking it, that's fine. The thing is that a lot of people are misusing this medication. And the bigger problem is that if kids or if teens or if adolescents are seeing like maybe their parents, maybe their older cousin, maybe that cool kid at school, if they're seeing these people abuse this medication, and it's like, oh, they're cool, they're doing this. Well, if I want to be cool, I should do this. I know that that's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, and that's very like 80s just say no type of thinking. But a lot of the time when these kids, when these young impressionable youth are watching like music videos, and they're watching Trippie Redd, not to demonize Trippie Redd, but when they're watching all these like young talented rappers and they're using these medications, it's like, oh, this person is successful in using this, that means I can do this as well. And we're not even scratching the surface of how these opioids are getting to the youth.
So you touched on a very important part in the beginning. I mean, all your points have sequential order, but the press pills, I think the use of fentanyl being used to cut these pills and the lack of education of individuals knowing that, 2 milligrams can send the average adult into respiratory arrest. That is a formula for disaster that we're seeing now with this crisis of the opiate epidemic that's increasingly over and over and over. And so we're trying to find the root of the problem, right? But the root has many factors in its way and how it channels and individuals finding this drug. So let's change the viewpoint now. Let's change the viewfinder towards recovery. Where do you think the recovery is, and for opiates? Julian, go ahead.
Well, one of the ways that people who are suffering through opioid addiction, one of like the paths that they can take is actually MAT treatment. So MAT treatment is medication assisted treatment. What that means is that because the come down from opiates is so extremely painful, most people will always avoid treatment. That's the reason, that's the sort of like the biggest excuse for not finding treatment, right? So the idea behind MAT is that if you can sort of remove one of the biggest obstacles that there is to treatment, more people are going to be able to find that treatment and apply that treatment into their own lives. So that's the idea behind MAT. But MAT isn't just medication. MAT is also counseling, um, a bunch of different like cognitive classes. You'll see your therapist. You'll have classes. It's basically a way so that you can get your life back on track, back to where it was, and back where you want it to be.
So let's moving towards MAT. When it comes to the youth, how do you think the parent consent part and should be explained for the parents to understand how MAT works? I know working with a couple of youth parents sometimes are reluctant to seek medication just because the first thing that they come with is, how are you going to give my son medication when they're already, taking opiates? So can you explain a little bit more how that replacement process works with MAT?
Um, well, the idea behind addiction treatment is that addiction is a disease. So just like any disease, there can be a medication to treat it. So like if you have a cold, you can look for medication to treat your cold, right? You could also just power through your cold if you wanted to, and just not be very happy while you're going through your cold, and then eventually it would pass. You can think about it like that if you want to. If addiction is a disease like that, you can get medication that will make the treatment of your addiction dramatically easier. The thing is that it's not just as easy as like take this, now you're better.
Sure.
It's take this, also see your therapist, also talk to a counselor, also maybe try to go to MA, CMA, go to any anonymous program that you want to. Go to HA, go to whatever you feel like applies to you. Go to that program. Look at talk to people who have been through this. Talk to people who are going through this. Get as much information about recovery as you can, and then start taking steps towards recovery.
Yeah, and definitely the addiction cycle doesn't have just one factor, right? It's not just because it feels good. It could be a trauma. It could be the chemical dependency and the withdrawal effects. How Julia was talking about the opiate withdrawals are some of the heaviest of all the drugs. In essence, some of the descriptors that some kids have given us. Kids have given us. Imagine kids describing that their bones are like on fire, correct? I mean, that's one of the
Yeah, that their bones are like on fire, that their bones ache, that their muscles are being crushed. Um, it it's all. So one of the kids described it as like the flu times a million. If you guys have ever like gotten soreness or aches like that, like aches in your back, your spine hurts. A lot of the time, people have described to me that opioids, what that the come down from opioids feels like someone is like squeezing their spine. It's a terrible thing to go through, and it's also a terrible thing to watch your loved one go through. Addiction is not fun. It's not pretty. It's not anything that I would want anyone to go through without any help. I think that in the realm of like the anonymous programs, um, the only option is sometimes abstinence. That works for a lot of people. The problem is that it also doesn't work for a lot of people. And so I'm not saying that abstinence only is like a bad route. I'm just saying if abstinence only has been tried and it doesn't seem to work for this one individual, and that individual has other options, maybe that individual should try those other options. And if those other options include MAT treatment, it seems like that's the way to go.
Yeah, so definitely MAT is a very successful program for the most part when it comes
Mhm.
to the intervention of the addiction cycle. But going back to where we started, how are the youth acquiring these drugs? So we did describe a little bit more how press pills are predominantly taking over the streets when it comes to the distribution. That's because also let's touch base on the acquirement and how cheaply they are, right, Julian? They're very these press pills that can have, they can have a bunch of chemicals that are, sometimes hard to even catalog by professionals.
Yeah, there's no way to know what kind of cut goes into them. There's no way to know who made them. There's not really a way to trace them. If everything is through cash, there's no way to tell. Um, one of the scarier things about like rap culture, not to demonize like rap culture or anything, but one of the scarier things about them is the glorification of like Xanax and like promethazine and things like that. And the problem with that is a lot of the Xanax that's being bought like on the streets.
Hmm.
A lot of that Xanax isn't actually Xanax. It's a pressed pill with some kind of fentanyl or some kind of opiate in it. Most of the time, fentanyl. And
And
if
even,
someone,
I
yeah,
was gonna say, even when kids, if you're watching this as a youth, even if you know what a press pill is and how to tell if it's fake or not, which kids know as a science, that's not assurance that you know for sure that it hasn't been laced or not. And even those assurances, that's where some of those overdoses come from. Where the pills might have be really good copies, and you really think it's a real Xanax and it's not.
yeah,
And many we were presenting earlier this week, and interestingly enough, a lot of people, there was a middle school presenting to, they know that, for example, Juice World, how he overdosed as soon as we said opiate. So the message is out there. I think the education process is not so much, and that's what we're trying here to give the information that, hey, first of all, this is what's going on in the streets, and the treatment is there for the addiction and the withdrawals for its success.
yeah. I just wanted to mention like we're not here to really demonize social media. We're not here to demonize music. We're not here to demonize anything like that. We would like to spread awareness. If one of the methods that kids are getting these pills is social media, maybe as parents, we should look into that. Maybe as society, we should look into that. If one of the ways is music, maybe don't listen to that music so much. Maybe take it with a grain of salt. Maybe realize that a lot of this music is just poetry. It is just fiction. Just like a movie, you don't watch it and you feel like, oh wow, The Mummy, this must be a documentary. A lot of the time, you can also listen to like Kodak Black and know that he's not being literal. He's saying he's creating a song. He's creating like his own fictional world. Like maybe some of us believe it to be true, but probably not true.
So we're here to promote a couple things where the main source of these drugs are coming from. We touch base from the streets for the most part, under pressed pills, and they're sold under different labels that they're designed to mimic the original one. We have your doctor prescribed medication pills, and we have a lot of these press pills. And these press pills they don't have the same effect as the medication ones that are designed to treat pain. So stay away from those because, as you know, a little amount, as low as 2 milligrams of fentanyl, can start respiratory arrest on the average adult. So it's a very strong drug. It's hard to even tell if a pill is pressed or not nowadays with all these copies. So if you're not sure, if it's not prescribed for you, don't take it. Simple as that. And the treatment is there. So thank you for joining us. We will see you guys next week. We'll give you some more information after the show in regards to man. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye everyone.
Bye bye.
Safe.